generally with this sort of thing, they'll fade in.
Oh.
The people have been talking for a long time beforehand, and it's a very natural progression.
So the weather has been...
I know.
It's been crazy.
It has, hasn't it?
It's been, what, 21 degrees? I've been boiling.
That's 1/20.
I know, it's ridiculous.
It's absolutely crazy. We were on holiday.
It must be because of Brexit, sure.
Absolutely.
It has to be.
They are just cocking it up royally, aren't they?
Yeah, clearly.
Typical Tories, eh? Typical
Yes.
Tories. Well, I guess the first order of the day is, what are we drinking?
We are drinking some kind of fluid.
We are. Now this is called, and all the metal fans, all three metal fans who are watching this will approve, it's called Korn, spelt with a K, as only the Germans could. Do you remember where we actually got this?
I don't. There was a cabin, and then
Ah, yes.
there was some idiot playing violin on stage at some point.
No one could hear him.
No,
And
thank God.
And an even more idiotic woman came up to him and says, "You were amazing!" And I was like, I know for a
Yes.
fact you couldn't hear me.
And then I woke up in my bed, and there was this bottle next to it.
It was.
It wasn't empty.
Do you know, that was a really good shopping trip. Very productive.
You know what? This is very smooth.
It is, isn't it? I mean, it has been in my freezer for the best part of 3 hours, but...
Which is generally a good idea.
Mm.
So yes, drink irresponsibly,
Mm-hmm.
as we usually do.
Absolutely. We're probably going to annoy a few people with this one, aren't we?
Yes, because we hate a particularly popular instrument. I wouldn't say hate.
No.
I mean, you are a guitarist after all. No, you're offended.
I'm very offended. Yes. I don't know. I think it's more that my level of skill is so low that you couldn't possibly call me a guitar.
I agree.
I can put this finger over 3 strings in drop D, and it makes chords. It's basically the extent of what I do.
Yes, so...
At least for machinery, that is.
So the question is... it says on that bit of paper.
There is no sheet of paper.
Oh, come on, there is a sheet of paper with some lettering on it. It's not much.
Yeah, so it was something I was thinking about in the car the other day,
Yes.
which is, has guitar music actually reached its zenith?
Well, exactly. Has it?
I mean, it's only because I haven't heard anything.
Well, I mean, put it this way. You've been touring Europe, you could say.
Yes.
Flattering ourselves.
Well, we have been locomoting around Europe.
Yes,
and
with, as you said, being able to play a power chord with one finger and
yes.
not actually doing much. So, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess if what you're saying is if that's the standard.
I mean, I'm not saying that's the standard, but that's clearly good enough.
Yes.
If you see what I mean?
Yeah, it is. I mean, shall we think more in terms of like what kind of music is coming out? Guitar music. Has anything made you go, "Oh, that's different"?
Not for a while. I mean, as you know, I'm mainly into 70s stuff, if anything.
Yes, you are.
I do believe that everything that was to be invented has been invented in the 70s. And, you know, I mean, aside from silly things like synth guitar, which is just atrocious and should be banned, I think. Yes. Sorry, Alan Holdsworth.
R.I.P. Alan.
Yes. But, you know, I don't think much has been happening, generally.
So you, obviously being the sort of person that you're thinking more in terms of technology.
Yes, but also technique.
Okay.
I mean, okay, sweep guitar is a relatively new fad, I suppose. But if you listen to John McLaughlin from the 70s,
yeah,
he's already pretty much doing that.
That is true. I mean, I guess if you say to most people what was like the cutting edge, I know it's falling out of fashion now, but what's the cutting edge of guitar music, they would probably, I think so, something like you wear a gent. You know,
I've heard the word.
DJENT.
I know it says on the Thomann DE website, you can actually specify whether you want a guitar that does gent,
yes.
But what it actually is, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not a guitarist.
So it's a style of metal that places very heavy emphasis on weird time signatures.
Okay.
And so do you know bands like Meshuggah?
Of course not.
Okay, just fine. Why do I bother? Okay, so it's all about weird and odd syncopations.
Yes.
Not very much by way of melody.
So compared with math rock.
Yes, but a very, very brutal extreme.
Okay.
For it's math rock taken to its most brutalistic limits.
Mm-hmm.
And any semblance of like tune, melody, catchiness has been stripped away.
Yes.
And it's all about a common sort of thing to make fun of.
Mm-hmm.
Very common in like internet memes is that the tabs are naught 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 because it's all like open string or one chord just going bow 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 bow.
Okay, well, I mean, fair enough.
But that's considered the cutting edge.
So that's the thing. When you say that, to me it seems like someone's basically trying a bit too hard.
Yes.
To be forcing themselves to be vaguely inventive, but you know, the instrument itself has. I mean, put it this way: with an classical instrument like the organ or the violin. Not that I'm a connoisseur or not that I realize what's going on on the experimental scene as such, but you know, musicality-wise, most things have already been done a long time ago. I think. I mean, with contemporary classical music scene, it's like. In terms of the articulation, in terms of getting the sound out of the instrument, it's, I think, I mean, prove me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that, you know, it's all been done 100 years ago.
In terms of what you can do with the instrument, yes.
Well, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, both of us are into vaguely, I'd like to think, experimental music. We've seen some relatively interesting albums coming out, which sound very strange, but they're all familiar sounds.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so
it's just the way they're being incorporated into the rest of the band, if you like, or rest of the ensemble, whatever we're dealing with.
I don't think I've maintained eye contact with you for this long ever.
Goodness sake, perv. I'll have you know, I'm very uncomfortable being this close to another male sitting on the same sofa.
I know, it couldn't be helped.
Within less than a meter from me. It's horrible. I'm not into you. You're married now.
I am actually, look at it. Girl. Anyway, that was a very strange sound to come out of me. Anyway, does that mean that guitar music is dead or that it's just being handled wrong?
It's not dead, obviously. There's people going to Foo Fighters gigs.
There are, but is that just like people going over a corpse?
Well, it kind of is, because, you know, I dare say it's been the same for, what, the last 20 years?
It seems that way.
I mean, I don't know. It's not my kind of music. I wouldn't know.
Well...
but it sounds very, you know... The variety is not in terms of the actual ideas behind the music. It's like filling out a template with different chords.
Yeah. I think filling out a template is a really nice way of looking at it, because, I mean, caveat to this, because I know a lot of people will go, yeah, but I know a band who do something really different. Like, yes, I'm sure you do, but we're talking in generalities, and we're talking about...
Yes, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but if you think about someone like Chopin or Rachmaninoff,
yes,
they would think in terms of, I mean, their genius isn't really the songs themselves, I don't think. It's like they come up with this pattern or template that they fill out. If you hear a Chopin piece, if you've heard enough Chopin pieces, you will know it's Chopin, even though you don't know the piece.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good point, because I was thinking about, in terms of is guitar music dead, in terms of the way that, at least to my mind, a lot of bands who were in the heyday of rock music, they didn't sound like each other. The Beatles sounded like the Beatles. You know, the Rolling Stones, much as I dislike them, sounded like the Rolling Stones.
Yes, but I suppose that's because there was a huge demand for new sounds back then. I mean, which actually does lead us on to another topic I believe we were going to discuss, because this is something, I mean, with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, this was something that one could dance along to much easier than the previous music that was available.
Yes.
Generally speaking. It was much more accessible, I dare say. And it was much more, I mean, I'm not discovering anything new when I'm saying all of this. Obviously, it's been said millions of times by now that singing a song about someone that's going back home after a hard day's work, that's kind of, it's a bit more easy to relate to that than to Rachmaninoff or Chopin. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's true. I mean, in terms...
Have some water.
Water, yeah.
Thank you.
In terms of that, I mean, that I know that that's a big definition of prog rock, which is something I was going to touch on.
Yes.
Is music to be listened to rather than danced to.
Yes. So, prog being short for progressive.
Oh, I thought it was short for procrastination.
Procrastination? Yes. In a way, yes, you could say that, because a lot of prog seems to be made on autopilot, We're
it does, doesn't it?
Gonna take this chord progression that doesn't really make sense, and we'll just play it for 20 minutes and build up a song over it. And people seem to be going with it. That's not very progressive to me.
No, I think, at least to my perception, prog has become this thing where as long as it's obnoxious and there's some sort of and there's some sort of barrier for entry. There's some reason that normal listeners would find it unpleasant. Then it's prog. Or if it sounds like Yes or King Crimson, then it's prog.
So I would argue, saying that when prog actually came out, that was progressive. It was pushing the boundaries of music, as it was. I mean, 1970 was 72 when The Dark Side of the Moon came out. That was 73 maybe. That was there was no such music.
No.
But then after that happened, there have been so many bands that are trying to be Floyd.
Yeah. Likewise with Dream Theater, I think they're a big one who sort of set a template for prog metal, and there's 101 bands.
Yeah, and it's just filling the gaps after the work has been done by this one original band that defines the genre. But of course you could argue that the whole point of bothering with being a musician is to progress, to create something that hasn't been created before, in one way or another.
Well, you say that, and I would hope that you were right, but it seems like for a lot of especially those in mainstream rock, their sort of highest accolade, Greta Van Fleet, I'm looking at you, is for someone to say, oh, they sound just like, and in the case of the band I just referenced, I don't know if you've come across them, everyone's going on about, oh, they sound just like Led Zeppelin.
It could or could not be a good thing. So suppose I'm driving somewhere far away. I've got 5 Floyd CDs in my car. I like Floyd.
Yeah.
I've listened to all of them, and I'm kind of bored of them. It might be a nice thing to chuck another CD in the radio that sounds, it's in a similar mood or similar musical aesthetics. To just carry on listening to this kind of thing. Maybe. Yeah. Because, it hasn't been done in the first place. But then, at the same time, is there demand for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of identical music?
Which there certainly are.
Yes.
We've come across many, many, many of them.
Exactly. Well, it's a psychological question, really. I think. Maybe there are people out there that need this kind of thing in their lives. I cannot identify with that. When I want to listen to Floyd, I just play some Floyd.
Yeah.
And I get bored after 2 hours and I listen to something else.
Yeah.
Amazing, no matter how amazing Floyd music is, which it is, as everyone knows. I don't think much else needs to be said in that respect.
No.
So we're just basically concluded that it's all subjective.
It is.
Everyone's got a different taste, and we can't really, say anything else than that.
No, but
Although they are wrong, I do agree.
they are all wrong. That being said, I do wonder. So, I obviously being the thorough researcher and student of music history that I am, I went on a Wikipedia page called "The Timeline of Progressive Rock Music."
I'll go.
Yeah. Obviously, there's lots of bands who missed out. There will be bands, sort of, forgive me for saying, too minor to include. But I couldn't help noticing that they went decade by decade. Every decade, from the 60s up to the 2000s, had many, many new bands being formed. You know, the 60s had the obvious, you know, Floyd, the Canterbury scene people. Yes. You know, the 70s had bands like Camel.
Yes.
The 80s had Queensryche, all sorts. 90s, you know, but you know, like Tool.
I wouldn't.
Okay, so more math rocky kind of people. Okay, yeah. 2000s and then 2010s, dramatic decrease. Now maybe that's because someone's not updating the page.
Maybe that's because it's all been done. I mean, there's only so much, maybe, that you can do with an instrument of this much potential.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I mean, how creative is it to plug your guitar into a ring modulator and track tons and tons and tons of chorus and then, you know, do something obnoxious to the sound? It's all been done.
Well,
really.
It depends if your name's Jeff Beck or not.
Well, yes. But, I mean, everything can be done musically or... No, what's the word? You can be very musical about what you're doing, or you can be very, I would say, mechanical about what you're doing. A lot of people that are, to me, that it seems that they're trying way too hard, or just very mechanical about it. They're like, oh, no one has tried this particular combination of decay setting on the delay pedal. And with this, I don't know, whatever effects they've decided to use. And, you know, I understand pedals and the pedal boards and all that are a huge part of the arsenal of your sonic spectrum as a guitarist. But there's a bit more to it, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, my thinking was that progressive music that hasn't reached its zenith, but maybe the sort of rock band guitar paradigm possibly has.
Maybe.
Because if you think about how much new string quartet music is out there, you know, every instrument has its limitations. Seems like a very defeatist thing to say, but perhaps it's true.
Yes and no, I don't know. I know about the idea of, for instance, playing jazz standards on a string ensemble. So that's something new.
Yes, it is new.
Okay, not new, but say 20 years old, which is relatively new for a string quartet. It hasn't really been done before. So you've got a cello playing the walking bass, and then viola doing some harmonic stuff, and the lead violin soloing, and then the other one doing whatever. You know, to me that's vaguely inventive.
Yeah.
I know it contradicts what I said right at the beginning, saying that most music has been done, because it's more like translating one language onto another language.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just internally fuming because I had that idea when I was about 10.
Yes.
And I couldn't find anyone who wanted to
do
that
thing
for
now.
me.
It's a thing now. I can give you bands that do it.
That's very irritating.
Yes, it happens to me all the time as well. Don't worry. I've got a very long text file on my computer of my ideas, and then an equally long text file of ideas that I've had but someone else did.
Yep.
And again, it kind of brings us back to our previous point, saying that, you know, you could be very creative, you could be coming up with very good ideas, but the chances are someone else has done it.
Yes.
And, you know, what can you do about it?
There is nothing
You can just carry on and hoping that you will hit this one idea that someone else hasn't.
Yeah.
Maybe.
There is nothing new under the sun, as somebody once said.
That is very true, I think. Although, it depends. I mean, to me, music is all about arranging ideas.
Yeah.
So, you could say that no one else came up with this particular arrangement of ideas.
Do you think, by the way, going off on something of a tangent,
Yes.
but this is what the format
Mhm.
is for. There is only, because we've talked about the limitations of particular instruments or ensembles.
Mhm.
Do you think there's a limit of what the human ear finds pleasant, and perhaps we're reaching that limit?
Okay, so historically speaking, think about the musical scale.
Yes.
It
I
has
often
been
do.
increasing in notes for a very long time. So if you, for instance, the Gregorian chant would have only used not 12-tone semitone,
Yeah.
equally tempered, or however you want to call it, but considerably fewer notes than this. Or Orpheus's, was it Orpheus? Lyra, or his instrument, whatever it is in English.
Yeah.
Um,
The lyre.
Lyra, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. It only had 4 strings.
Yes, that's very
Was
true.
it C, G, something, and then C again? Just 4.
You're asking now, but yeah.
Anyway, it was reasonably, by today's standards, it couldn't really do anything with, aside from 12-bar blues, maybe.
That's all you need, bro.
No. Yeah, and
I'll stop now.
and these days you have a lot of people researching microtonal music.
Mm-hmm.
You could say that the next thing might be the 19 semitone equally tempered. You could say it's the 32, I think, or whatever it was. There is fusion that involves guitars that have twice as many frets between the 0th and 12th fret. What would be the 12th fret? There is music like that out there.
Yeah.
It sounds horrible.
Yeah.
To anyone that's not familiar with the scale. To
Yeah.
someone that's familiar with the scale, maybe it makes sense. I don't know. I'm not familiar with it. With the equally tempered industry standard we're using right now, there's still so many possibilities, I think. I know I said everything has been done, but maybe there is this one particular arrangement of sounds that actually no one came up with before. Or maybe not even the sound, because, there's so many dimensions to music. It's not just the music itself, it's also the, say, arrangement. Like we said, jazz standards played by a string quartet.
Yeah.
It's, the notes might have been invented by someone that's played this in the 50s. Although the song will be different, but the ideas are similar. But the overall sonic outcome of the whole thing is very much different.
Yeah.
It's different to your standard waltz from Vienna. And it's also different to your bog standard Thelonious Monk composition. Yeah.
Speaking of sonic outcome and where music is headed, very occasionally I'm subjected to pop music. It's not often, but it does happen.
I am quite a lot these days, unfortunately.
Have you noticed, certainly stuff that's current in the charts, you're more and more losing the impression of sort of different instruments? Like they all sound like just kind of a sonic soup.
Well, they do, but I think they have been for a long time. But what annoys me is when people actually discover certain musical devices. It seems like triplets are a thing these days.
Yes.
Every song seems to have this triplety thing at some point. And also there's another thing that I'm talking technical, but I don't know how to even describe it. There's this really weirdly processed vocal sample thing that seems to be part of about half of anything that's on the charts now. I would have to demonstrate what I mean, but it's not that relevant really. What's more relevant is that it seems like there are particular trends. It seems like some particular musical ideas are, I think, fashionable. For no reason whatsoever, because honestly I think they're just rubbish.
Yeah, it's an odd one.
And I think a lot of, working musicians would agree about this. This is something that you just wouldn't do.
Yeah.
Just like autotune was a huge fad in the late 90s, early 2000s. It is now, but it's a bit less obnoxious. People don't actually use it as much as an effect. No, they use it to mask lack of skill. Rather than use it as a standalone effect.
Yeah.
Which is even worse, but what can you do?
Yeah, that's a conversation all of its own.
Yes.
Do you know what we should do actually? Is because we're talking about where music's headed. And
Yes.
we've both got our heads somewhat fairly squarely buried in the past
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what we listen to on a regular basis.
Oh yes.
Maybe we should actually do a video or two where we're actually reviewing something that's out there.
Maybe. I mean, who would listen to that?
Who would listen to this?
Well, exactly.
Well,
I'm sure my mum will listen to that.
yes. Hello, Matt's mum.
Cześć, mum.
My mum probably won't.
She's Chinese.
She is.
But yeah, anyway. Yeah, maybe.
That might be a fun thing to do. I mean...
Your definition of the word fun is very masochistic.
Yes, it is. Fun means achievement and output.
Yes.
Fun means serving the glorious People's Party.
Yes. If you say so.
North Korea's best Korea.
Yeah. You should probably sue yourself. Right.
Yes.
What's next?
What is next? I had run out of ideas on this sheet of paper.
But there is no sheet of paper.
There is no sheet of paper. No, I mean, I think that's we've pretty well slated everything. And anything.
Maybe. Anyway, my glass is running out of fluid in it, so maybe it is about the time we call it today.
I think we should call it a day.
Let's call it today.
Yes, but until the next time, we'll see you later. Good night.
Bye.